So have you ever noticed that the inner critic doesn't sound so random? It sounds very familiar. It sounds safe. It sounds like a voice you've heard before. And most of the time it's because that isn't your voice. So today I want you to understand where the inner critic comes from and how you can separate yourself from it. Because if you're going to live in obedience to your inner critic, you're going to miss out on your goals, because when it starts criticizing you, you just give up. But let me first explain to you the psychology of the inner critic, how it comes about, where it comes from. So when we are children, we don't have critical thinking. We just absorb. We absorb beliefs, opinions, expressions. When we are children, we don't know much of right or wrong. We learn from whoever is an authority in that space. Now, authority figures become internal narrators. And whatever they repeat to us, it becomes belief, because repetition breeds belief. Whatever is repeated to us, we take it as the gospel. But one thing for sure is that if they are going to repeat negativity, it's going to stick. Because shame embeds better than praise. Meaning that if you're repeatedly corrected, judged, compared to other people, your brain comes into survival mode. Your brain learns a survival strategy. So your inner critic is mostly your survival strategy that you learned when you were younger. That is why whenever you're about to take a decision, you kind of hear that voice trying to shield you, or trying to say, don't embarrass yourself, or trying to say, wait until things are perfect. It's basically the inner critic that was formed from your past experiences. And that is why the voice sounds so familiar. So for example, if you're about to take a decision and you hear the inner critic acting like imposter syndrome, saying there are better people than you, it's most likely that part of your childhood where you were compared to others and you were told that others were doing better than you. That will now manifest as the inner critic being an imposter syndrome in your adulthood. Another example is if you were raised by somebody who wanted things to be perfect, who had maybe a condition that made them obsessed with perfect things, the child never thinks they're good enough. In your adulthood now, you hear your inner critic always saying, wait for things to be perfect before you can act. Wait for this to be this way. And you become indecisive. You become an overthinker. You become somebody obedient to your inner critic. Most of the time, it's just the sum of your childhood worries manifesting as the inner critic. You learned a survival strategy that in order for me to survive, I have to have things as perfect as possible. So most of the time, that's what it's about. So let me tell you a personal story. So when I was growing up, I was a hyperactive child, very intelligent, very, very active. So most of the time, I had people in my life saying I should tone it down, saying I'm making other people uncomfortable, saying I should always try to relax. So now in my adulthood, my inner critic used to tell me to tone it down so that I can accommodate other people and make them comfortable. I remember one time I was at a debate competition and we had these chances where we ask each other questions, like in a debating a parliamentary style. So I would feel my inner critic saying, sit down. You don't need to be asking and hammering questions left, right, and center. You need to tone it down to accommodate the confidence of other people. And guess what? You only win by poking holes in your opponent's story. So the inner critic wanted to limit me at that point. And as I'm looking back, I'm like, it's because people used to tell me to tone it down. Now it's manifesting as a voice inside me, teaching me to accommodate other people and not took too much. As I was growing up, I knew that I looked different. Now it meant I spent most of the time feeling like I'm watched, feeling like I'm judged, and most of the time having some people that projected their beliefs onto me, like the belief that I should stay hidden. And as time went on, as I developed myself, I began to notice that all of these experiences of me being shaped to become ashamed of who I am, this was filled with assumption, this was filled with people's voices, and later on those voices were the ones speaking to me as the inner critic, saying I'm not good enough, saying I have to hide, saying I should not show my face in public. So all of these things were just shaped by voices from my past. It wasn't really me as a person. It was my inner critic reflecting my past. So let's talk about how to break up the pattern of obeying your inner critic. Now that you understand where the voice comes from and you understand that the voice is not you, first thing is first. I love this one. Name it. Naming reduces power, meaning that when you hear that voice convincing you not to take a step, I want you to ask yourself, who does this sound like? I can bet you're going to name somebody in your life who raised you or somebody who is an authority figure. You're going to know, this is my aunt speaking. This is my abusive aunt who said I was too fat, I shouldn't speak in front of people. Or this is my abusive aunt who used to say I'm too dark, or my nose is too big, or my lips are too big. If you name it, you reduce the power. The second step I want you to consider, you need to ask yourself about the stage. Sometimes it's very important to know, is this my younger self speaking, my younger wounded self, or is this my adult self who was bullied at work? Because sometimes as we grow up, the inner voices that speak inside us is not only our childhood, it's people that we have interacted with when we were older. It's so important that you name it. That is this my younger self who was abused by their cousins or their family? Or is this my older self who was told by the boss that they're not good enough? Now, after you've named it and you've determined if this is your younger self or your older self talking, I want you to do one thing that is so important. The third step is very critical. I want you to sit for a minute. If it's your younger self, I want you to sit for a minute and imagine the type of parent you would have wanted to hear from, or the type of aunt, or the type of brother or sister you would have loved to have. If, for example, you had a really mean brother, you would want to have a really kind brother. Now, you need to create that persona so that it replaces the mean voice in your head. I take it to creating a higher vision of myself. Like with myself, I've got a higher vision of me. The higher vision of me is so kind. The higher vision of me is so humble. The higher vision of me is so comforting. The higher vision of me can only speak life, abundance, peace, health, only good things to me. So when I'm having a bad day or I feel voices from my past, my inner critic wanting to tell me to sit down, give others a chance, my higher self would say, shine. It's your moment to shine. Don't shy away from shining. It's your moment to shine. You worked hard to shine. Own your space. Take up space. Speak up, baby girl. That's my higher self. I'm going to do another video in full about this, about learning to develop your higher self, a character that is bigger than you, a character that can speak, contend with your inner voice, and rule over your life, knowing that it's only positive, encouraging, and it's only there for the good. It's only there to silence the doubts and silence the perfectionist in you. Your inner critic is not proof that you're broken. Your inner critic is just proof that you adapted. It's proof that you've got the ability to adapt. If you adapted to the voices that were speaking inside you, saying you're not good enough, if you adapted and learned how to coexist with voices that try to protect you, that means you can adapt to voices that speak good. You can adapt to the vision of yourself that is positive. You can adapt to the vision of your character that says go for it. You are building, you are protected, you are blessed, you are beautiful. Go up and shine. It means you can form a different relationship and adapt to the positive drive of growth. I believe so much that the brain can adjust to anything that you give it. I believe so much that the brain listens to what you repeat. Like I said, repetition builds culture and repetition breeds belief. And I believe that as you repeat that you're growing, as you name and shame it, as I usually say, and you always identify why and whose voice it sounds like, and then you replace it with a positive voice, I believe that you'll be able to conquer anything that comes your way. If this resonated with you, tell me who formed part of your inner critic and in what way did they affect your life. Subscribe as we get on the inner critic series. Bye, bestie.